First of all, we would like to express our condolences to the leadership and people of the Islamic Republic of Iran over the numerous human casualties, including among civilians, as a result of Israeli strikes. We are witnessing an extremely dangerous escalation in the Middle East region as a result of Israel's actions, which requires the Council's urgent attention. We are grateful to the Guyanese chairmanship for convening this meeting promptly. It is symptomatic that the Council was originally supposed to consider today, at this very time, the humanitarian consequences of Israel's inhumane actions against the inhabitants of the Gaza Strip. Instead, we are forced to discuss a new dangerous and irresponsible adventure by Jerusalem, this time also pushing the region towards a large-scale nuclear catastrophe. On the night of June 13th, Israel launched a series of large-scale strikes on the territory of the Islamic Republic of Iran. Sleeping cities, civilian infrastructure, as well as peaceful nuclear facilities under International Atomic Energy Agency (IAEA) safeguards were under attack. We heard from the speakers about civilian casualties. This unprovoked attack, no matter how much Israel claims otherwise, constitutes a flagrant violation of the UN Charter and international law. It seems that the Israeli leadership is convinced that it has a complete free hand in the region, and apparently believes that Israel can trample on all legal foundations and replace all international structures, including the UN Security Council and the IAEA. The Russian Federation strongly condemns this action by Jerusalem. His military adventures are pushing the region to the brink of a big war. The responsibility for all the consequences of these actions rests squarely with the Israeli leadership and those who encourage it. Of particular concern are the possible radiological consequences of the destruction of nuclear facilities. For a number of years, our country has been warning about the unacceptability of a military solution to the issues around the Iranian nuclear program, which could entail grave consequences not only for the Middle East, but also for the entire world. However, these calls were not heard, and now the situation is developing according to the most negative and unpredictable scenario. Madam President, Israel's actions are aimed at undermining the ongoing negotiating efforts in various formats to find solutions in order to reduce tensions around Iran's peaceful nuclear program. While the whole world is waiting with hope for the results of the next round of indirect contacts between Iran and the United States, previously scheduled for June 15th, Israel decided to anticipate them in the way it needed and began to bomb Iran's nuclear energy infrastructure, demonstrating disregard for laws, norms, agreements, rules, everything that forms the basis of civilized interaction between states. However, the responsibility for what happened lies not only with the State of Israel, but also with its closest allies. This is a direct consequence of the connivance of Western countries, which for months have been deliberately and methodically whipping up anti-Iranian hysteria both in the UN Security Council and in the IAEA Board of Governors. These states did not even try to find a constructive solution to the crisis around the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action and UNSC Resolution 2231, which approved it. Their task was different: to put pressure on Iran in any way, portraying it as the source of all the troubles in the region, and groundlessly presenting Tehran's legitimate retaliatory steps in the form of using the protective mechanisms provided for by the JCPOA as a violation of non-proliferation obligations. At the same time, the Iranians have endured for years and have not refused to cooperate with the IAEA or to engage in dialogue in order to find negotiated solutions. We would like to recall, and this fact is now of fundamental importance, that all the problems around the JCPOA began due to the unilateral withdrawal of the United States from the nuclear deal in 2018, as well as the principled unwillingness of the United Kingdom, France, and Germany to fulfill their obligations under the plan, including the creation of conditions for Tehran to receive material benefits from the lifting of unilateral sanctions by the European Union that were in effect until 2015, and subsequently they completely resumed unilateral sanctions pressure in violation of Article 25 of the UN Charter. The EU also joined this pressure, neglecting its duties as an impartial coordinator of the Joint Commission of the JCPOA. The latest outrageous example was another biased and detached from reality resolution of the IAEA Board of Governors, which was adopted yesterday at the Vienna meeting, which deals with a certain fictitious threat to international peace and security from Iran's nuclear program. This is despite the fact that Iran has strictly complied with its obligations under the NPT and the Comprehensive Safeguards Agreement, has been and remains the most rigorously verified state by the IAEA, and the reports of the agency's secretariat clearly indicate that there are no proliferation risks. That is, the Western participants in the plan have been doing everything all this time to add fuel to the fire of escalation, and in fact, they have incited it. Their artificial creation of tension on international platforms only spurred Israel to radical steps and created an illusion of permissiveness. In the context of the current Israeli strikes, special attention is drawn to the information circulating in the media about the likely coordination of the actions of Israel and the British Special Services, which immediately after the Israeli strike on Iran sheltered the Israeli aircraft involved in the operation at their base in Cyprus. We have also recorded the statements of the Israeli side that Germany, by the way, a party to the JCPOA, and Italy were warned in advance about its attacks. It became known that our American colleagues were also notified about the strikes. The Israeli strikes were also supported by the French, who clearly knew about them in advance. In this regard, we will not be surprised if the members of this group of like-minded people begin to vie with each other to condemn Iran for retaliatory actions taken in accordance with Article 51 of the UN Charter. We are closely following the actions of the IAEA Secretariat in the current situation, whose lives and health were endangered as a result of the Israeli military adventure. We hope that the agency's Director General will provide objective assessments and analyses of what is happening, including in terms of the consequences for the radiological situation. Madam President, unprovoked attacks on the territory of sovereign Iran and targeted strikes on peaceful nuclear infrastructure cannot be justified. The international community must not and cannot remain indifferent to such a provocation. Connivance with such actions is a path to a major war in the region and a serious threat to global security. We are convinced that the UN Security Council is obliged to give an unequivocal legal and political assessment of Israel's actions, as well as to call for an immediate cessation of any military pressure and a renunciation of the practice of unilateral military steps. All diplomatic efforts aimed at de-escalation and a return to negotiations must be supported. We would like to emphasize once again that the settlement of issues related to the Iranian nuclear program is possible only through peaceful, political, and diplomatic means. No military solution here can be either legitimate or viable. This, by the way, has been repeatedly stated by the United States itself, justifying its readiness to continue negotiations. Russia remains committed to strengthening international law, complying with the UN Charter, and finding solutions that will prevent the region from sliding further into a new destructive war. We are ready to cooperate with all those who advocate diplomacy and the search for ways to resolve existing contradictions peacefully. Thank you for your attention.
Early this morning, Israel launched large-scale attacks on multiple targets in Iran, causing damage to Iran's nuclear facilities and casualties. The Israeli side said that Israeli military operations would last for several days. China condemns Israel's actions that violate Iran's sovereignty, security, and territorial integrity, opposes the intensification of tensions and expansion of conflicts, and is deeply concerned about the potential grave consequences of the Israeli operations. The abrupt heating up of the region serves no one's interest. We urge Israel to immediately cease all military adventurism, avoid further escalating tensions, and call on all relevant parties to abide by the UN Charter and international law, resolve disputes through political and diplomatic means, and jointly maintain regional peace and stability. China is seriously concerned about the negative impact of the current developments on the diplomatic negotiations on the Iranian nuclear issue. China has always been committed to peacefully resolving the Iranian nuclear issue through dialogue and negotiation. We oppose the use of force and illegal unilateral sanctions, and oppose armed attacks on peaceful nuclear facilities. As an NPT signatory, Iran's right to the peaceful uses of nuclear energy should be fully respected. President, for some time now, conflicts in the Middle East have dragged on, and the regional situation has remained highly tense. Gaza has been subjected to prolonged attacks and blockades, with over 2 million people trapped in an unprecedented humanitarian disaster. The international community should work together to promote a ceasefire in Gaza, de-escalate the regional situation, and effectively curb the spread of the conflict. Countries with significant influence over Israel should practically play a constructive role. The Security Council should make full use of all the means conferred to it by the Charter to ensure the implementation of its relevant resolutions and to play its due role in maintaining regional peace and security. I thank you, President.